All right, and that is the Premier League in the books. We are done and dusted. 38 games played, and we have champions, we have losers. This is Red Card Radio. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, whenever you're listening from. Thanks for tuning in. Red Card Radio is a weekly look at the Premier League from three friends who support different clubs. My name is James. I support Arsenal. With us tonight is not Brad. That's Joel. He supports Newcastle. And down below that is Sean. He supports Tottenham Hotspurs. Gentlemen, good evening. Hello. Merry end of the Premier League season to you both.
Good evening. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Always a pleasure.
I'm a little sad.
Yeah, same.
Yeah, it's over.
Well,
you're sad for different reasons. I'm sad because it's gone.
Well, way to steal the thunder there. You didn't even let me set the table before you pulled the rug out.
Yeah, go ahead and set it.
Yeah, no, I agree with your sentiment. This is like the worst part because like we don't get anything for it's probably like 9 weeks until the players start reporting back for preseason, like mid-July usually.
No, baby, we got Euros.
Well, yeah, I know that, but I don't.
It's coming home, right, Joel?
That's right. Henderson's not in the squad. Rashford's not in the squad. It's coming home.
We've got the Copa America.
Dean Henderson was let off, the best goalkeeper in England.
I can't say I'm surprised, Sean.
What?
He's heading.
Do you want to set the table?
Yeah, we should
put the plates out,
yeah,
chargers, napkins, forks at the table.
So before we do that, if you could hit that subscribe button, ring the sub notification bell if you're on YouTube. If you're finding us for the first time, we really do appreciate that you clicked on this, and we hope that you find this enjoyable. If you're on one of the podcast sites, hit it with a follow, 5-star review. All those things that we find helpful, share it with a friend, and all those things help us tremendously. Okay, what we're doing tonight, we are talking exclusively about the English Premier League. We're talking about match week 38, and then just holistically the Premier League as the Premier League this season, winners, losers, things like that, things to be excited about. No comments from last week, so we won't belabor that. But let's. I think the most important thing to do is start by looking at the league table. As any passive follower of the Premier League will be aware, Manchester City are champions. This is the 4th year running. The first time an English team has won the top division 4 times. Yes, as Joel is yawning, it is getting a bit boring at this point with Manchester City, but somebody's got to beat them. I think it's 6 league titles out of 7.
Yeah, it is. That's right.
We're getting eerily close to the Bayern Munich 11-year run, the Juventus 9 or 10-year run. Like it's
we're getting into Farmers League territory here.
Yes, we are. Arsenal gave it a good shot. They end up 2 points short. This is the 2nd year in a row. Arsenal finished 2nd behind Manchester City. Liverpool 3rd. Aston Villa finished 4th. Very respectable campaign from Aston Villa. I think that's exciting. Tottenham secure 5th. They will be in the Europa League next year, regardless of what happens in the FA Cup final between Manchester City and Manchester United. In 6th and 7th, waiting with bated breath for the result of that FA Cup final, are Chelsea and Newcastle United, respectively. Should City win the FA Cup and do the domestic double, Chelsea will be in the Europa League, and Newcastle United will be in the UEFA Europa Conference League. Have to make sure I get that correct. Manchester United finish 8th, West Ham United finish 9th, and Crystal Palace finish in the top 10. 11th is Brighton and Hove Albion. Bournemouth is 12th. Fulham is 13th. Wolves finish 14th. Everton, very respectable, 15th. Now, if we want to kind of play the what-if game, they were
docked.
I think 8. Yeah, so if we play the what-if game, they would have been on 48 points, which would have left them
finished 12th.
12th, yeah, because they had a superior goal difference to Bournemouth. So that would have been, I think, a tremendous season for Everton, considering where they've been for the last 2 years. Brentford are 16th and surviving, not by the skin of their teeth, by a fairly safe margin as it came to be. Nottingham Forest, 6 points clear of Luton Town. So the teams relegated are the teams promoted from last year. It's Luton Town, Burnley, and Sheffield United. Also, not terribly interesting, but that's where we are.
Gosh, if you're Nottingham, I just want to start right there.
Yeah.
If you're Nottingham, you have to be breathing a huge sigh of relief after all they spent last year and barely staying up. And then tweaking the roster a little bit this year, not doing what they did last year, but also staying up to get
with a points deduction too.
With the points deduction to get that safety and get that Premier League money for one more year to be able to clear a positive net on a year.
Well, what is
going to be huge?
What, they were docked 4 points, was it?
I just two, I believe. Two.
Just 2? No, 4 points. Nottingham Forest deducted 4 points following a breach of Premier League rules.
I thought they got 2 points back.
Everton, no, they dropped their appeal.
Their wins are worth.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yeah. So what it was Everton were docked 8 points. It dropped to 6, and then they got a second.
No, it was 10. It was 10, then 8. I'm pretty sure for Everton. Either way, they got points.
Yeah, whatever. Everton ultimately 8 points, and Nottingham Forest 4. They were appealing, and then they dropped their appeal essentially.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So they would have ended on 36 points. Forest, that is, which would have been 10 points clear. But even still, I agree with you. Like Forest have to be tremendously pleased that they were able to stave off relegation. We have
Luton put on a show.
We the championship playoff hasn't been played yet.
No, it's Saturday.
Saturday coming up.
Saturday, I believe.
Yeah, so we know Ipswich and Leicester are up, and then it's Southampton and Leeds, Southampton and Leeds.
Leeds.
So
yeah.
It's actually this Sunday. Yeah.
Interestingly, of the 3 of those teams were the teams that were relegated from the Premier League a season ago. Yeah. At least 2 of them will come up. So.
Good to see some new blood. Ipswich coming up.
Yeah,
Kieran McKenna. If apparently he's pretty high up on Chelsea's radar. The manager of Ipswich.
Why would you go to Chelsea?
I'd stay at Ipswich. Yeah.
We that's another thing where Sean is just stealing the thunder of the rundown, is that Chelsea have sacked Mauricio Pochettino, or they have mutually agreed to terminate the contract. We will get to that in just a moment.
It's called segues, James. Welcome to broadcasting.
But you've segued from the relegation zone to mid-table. I thought we were going to work top down. I figured that made the most sense.
Then that needs to make it into the pre-production.
We literally said this like 10 minutes ago, I feel like. Okay, let's talk with the championship. Manchester City narrowly beat out Arsenal, 91 points to 89 points. Interesting. I did look. Arsenal's point total this year would have won the Premier League last year. 89 points with a 62 goal difference. City won the league last year, 89 points with a 61 positive goal difference. So Arsenal would have narrowly won the league last year with this point total. Obviously, I am disappointed that Arsenal didn't win the league. I am of the opinion that we have done it to ourselves. I think that the biggest thing that Arsenal can be disappointed about this year is the fact that they picked up 1 point against Fulham and 0 points against Aston Villa. Arsenal were beating Fulham 2-1 in October, something like that, and Zinchenko gives the ball away, and Fulham score an equalizer, and that's 2 points down the drain. Had we had those 2 points, we would have
won the league.
We'd won the league by 1 goal difference. We would have, yeah, because we had so I don't think that there's anything that we can point to. Like, I know a lot of people want to complain about referee shenanigans or VAR this or VAR that, but there's zero. We can't talk about that. Nothing to do there. What's up, Joel? You have a question?
I just have one thing to say.
Certainly.
Now that the season's over and Arsenal didn't win the league, it was definitely a foul on Gabriel. Just need to get off my chest.
There we got it. There we got it.
It was definitely a push.
He's been saving that. He's been saving that for 7 months.
Of all the things I thought you were about to say there, that did not even register. What I thought you were going to ask was after the Manchester City game, Arsenal City at the Etihad, you asked me, you said, will you be disappointed that Arsenal didn't go for a win there? And I mean, obviously, like I told you I would answer that question after the season. So that was the question I was expecting. I was not
I just had to
anticipating.
get it.
Yeah.
I just had to get it off my chest.
It's interesting you bring that up because that was brought up by Rodri postseason. He said the difference is mentality.
He's a
because you
bum.
could tell, and Rodri
Yeah, he's a
is a
bum.
bum.
Let me tell you why. Because when they came to the Emirates, they had no interest in winning that game, and we beat them at the Emirates. So don't talk to me about mentality. Arsenal picked up all but 4 points since the turn of the new year in the Premier League. Like, or maybe it's 5 points technically. Yeah, it was a draw and not 4.
You lost to Villa.
Lost 1 and dropped. Yeah, so we dropped 5 points in the last 19 games or something like that. So don't talk to me about mentality, Rodri. That's just like a little cutesy thing to say and be like, "Oh, look how awesome we are." Like, you guys came to the Emirates and didn't play to win the game. Okay? So like don't come at me with that, please. It's nonsensical.
I thought I would ruffle some feathers with that one.
Yeah, well, he's a cheater. They're all cheaters. And no, I'm checking. Anyway.
They are. Speaking of them cheating,
yeah.
The Britain's version. By the way, Joel, what is the Britain's version of Vegas? Is there a gambling hub?
Heck yeah, there is. It's called Blackpool.
Blackpool. All right. So Blackpool bettors have Manchester City at 30-1 to get relegated next year. So for reference, that is very steep odds. You do not want to. That's not a very good betting odd. You don't want to take that one. However, for reference, Liverpool and Arsenal are 2,001 to 1 to get relegated. So the Sharps in Blackpool say that there is a pretty good chance that they're going to take a point deduction next year, and they're hedging their bets on if that gets them relegated.
Put it into perspective, Leicester to win the league in 2016 was 5,000 to 1.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
Yep.
I mean, but the thing is, even if you put money on that bet and then a City are relegated for like if they're either just like ripped from the league and or points deduction, I bet that the bookies don't pay it out because it's not a natural relegation. You know, they did it. You know, some outside influence. You know, I'm sure they find some fine print to not pay it out.
I would find the finest lawyer in London and fly north. And no, we're getting that bet, boy.
Nah.
You said relegated, they are out of here.
Yeah. So,
but the point being, the Sharps at the the famous saying of they have really expensive chandeliers in Vegas. I'm sure they got really expensive chandeliers in Blackpool too, for a reason, because they take your money.
If we were to look at the top half of the Premier League, which teams finished surprised you the most? Let's start with you, Joel. Which of the top 10, what team surprised you the most in the top
10? 3 teams jump out.
Okay.
Villa.
Yep.
Getting top 4, unreal. Man United getting 8th after finishing 3rd last year.
Yep.
And then Crystal Palace, top half finish. Good for them.
Yeah, I think those are the main storylines. I don't know what you feel like, Sean. Is that or anything else that you would have pointed out?
I don't think I'm surprised at all at Villa. Unai had them playing really well last year, and I don't think it's a surprise at all that they are where they are. I think that's a very just finishing position. Other than I thought we deserved it a little bit better, but you gotta get the results on the field to have the deserving part matter. My surprise is Manchester United. I think we all thought they were going to be a lot better than they were, and they just fell apart. And
I mean, I've been the Manchester United apologist this year on Red Card Radio.
Yeah, atone for your sins. Why have you been defending them?
They've been ravaged by injuries. right? Like in the
No,
same
they
way,
stink.
in the same
They're not
way,
good.
in the same way that Chelsea and Newcastle were ravaged by injuries, Manchester United have also been ravaged by injuries this year. Um, so I think that we also have to look at that in context. I agree with you guys. Like I think eighth is a phenomenally bad finish for Manchester United. Um, it's I think their worst finish,
The lowest ever,
the lowest ever in the Premier League.
and they conceded the most goals ever that they have in the
Yeah.
Premier League.
I mean, -1 goal difference for Manchester United seems outrageous to me. But I think also they were only 8 points off of Aston Villa. So I think that there was a clear stratification in these teams. You had the top three who were kind of a similar level, and then you had 4 through 8 who were kind of all punching out and duking out and trying to fight for who would not, like everyone was trying desperately not to finish fourth. It seemed like for a long time there.
Yeah, I feel like Villa and Spurs were completely separated from
For a
six
while.
below, and then towards the end of the season, Spurs kept losing and Chelsea kept winning,
Yeah.
and that just closed the gap. 'Cause Spurs lost 5 out of the last 6,
Yeah.
or something like that,
Um,
and Chelsea won 5 in a row or something. So like it really closed the gap.
and our recent form is the 6 games. It went loss, win on the final day.
Yeah.
That's it.
If
So
Sorry,
it
you
was
won
it
the
was
last
rough.
2, but before that was 4 losses in a row.
Yeah.
That's right. Against really good teams, but I
yeah.
think that's what closed the
You
gap.
gotta take some some draws there. You gotta pull something out of there.
I think I agree with you about Villa surprise, but Crystal Palace for me stands out. They were dreadful. They were dreadful in the first half of the year, and they've been playing so well under the new manager.
They have
And so it was
I'm
their
it was
front line
I'm
as
won-
well.
oh yeah,
I'm wondering if Glasner's style of play and the way they finish the season is enough to convince as an Elise to stay.
I doubt it. I mean, like you
If
like if you're getting offers from Manchester United, from Chelsea, from
Spurs, any of the
Spurs, maybe
top 7,
Arsenal, yeah,
yeah,
it's hard to pass that up.
any team with European football, it's going to be hard.
Yeah. I mean, maybe they can hold on to him, but at the same time, if somebody's offering Crystal Palace good money, and I'm not saying that Crystal Palace need the money, but I think that they definitely would look at it and be like, we can't pass up on this now. Like, what happens if they get injured, or like, you don't want to lose the opportunity. And you could also have a Wilfred Zaha situation where he leaves and then comes back. You never know what happens. So. If you look at the bottom half, maybe excluding the relegation teams, um, are you surprised by any of these teams that finished 11th through 17th? Are
Yeah,
you? Yeah,
Brighton.
yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, so Brighton.
Brighton 11th. I was expecting them to be a lot higher. Well, a lot higher is at least 3-4 places higher, like battling for that Conference League spot again.
Yeah, they were never
Um,
they were never really in the conversation for European spaces. It seemed like.
I think at the start of the season they were. People were tipping them for Europa League and everything. So
Yeah,
yeah,
definitely, definitely. I guess what I meant by that was that like once my famous thing is like I don't like looking at the league table until 10 weeks in. Like I think that the league everything's so volatile for the first quarter of the season, um, once we got into that point where there had been like a critical mass of games played and you kind of got a feel for where everyone was, it didn't ever seem like Brighton were
yeah,
seriously in contention for that.
yeah. I think the other team would be Wolves. I kind of would have expected them to be closer to mid-table. I didn't ever thought they were challenging for Europe or going down, but 14th is considering the caliber of players they have.
I think
I don't know.
Wolves were
I would
one of
thought they'd be
those.
higher.
Wolves seem to be one of those teams that were hit hard by questionable decisions, questionable VAR
Oh yeah,
decisions,
big time. Yeah.
and so are there 6 points, 7 points in there somewhere that they maybe should have had,
I
or
mean,
maybe
game
could,
one of the
And
season away at Man United.
yeah,
So, yeah.
if
like
you give them if you were to have given them 6 points and the goals that were associated, they would have finished ninth.
yeah,
And I think that's where I expect them to finish.
And so
So
Is it right?
I think your points work in consortium. I think if what James is saying, if those calls go
Mhm.
correctly adjudicated and they get the goals associated with that, then they would have been
Yeah,
ninth. They would have been a
that's
top half team. So
very fair.
uh,
Yep.
they were apologized to what 3 times this year?
at
Was that
least
what it was?
at least two,
Yeah,
maybe it was.
an embarrassing amount is what
Uh,
it was.
they got apologized enough for them to file a resolution to dissolve VAR in the Premier League.
Mhm.
Yes,
So like,
yes, I did see that. That is
uh,
amazing, by the way.
Yeah, and the
and
last
then
team will be Bournemouth.
okay,
Bournemouth. Yeah,
are you
they did.
surprised with that they finished as high as they did, or that
Yeah,
you expected them to be
yeah.
higher?
No, they finished higher than I thought. I think a few people tipped them to go down or be right down there. So did you?
I think I relegated them this year. I have to look
Yeah,
back, but
I think they've been excellent.
I'm pretty sure I either had them finishing 17th or 18th.
You
So
did.
yeah,
But yeah,
um,
that would be
So
my
so did I.
three bottom half teams.
yeah. And then I mean, Sean, do you have any words for Sheffield United?
Go away forever. I mean, seriously, I want to file an injunction to make sure they never return to Premier League. Like, just if they finish in the top three, if they're you're just not allowed back up.
Sure. What about Brentford?
Yeah, disappointed they didn't go down. The kennel definitely deserves to stay up, but
And
uh,
what about Neil
Mope,
Morpay?
yeah, he'll go back to his parent club. And they'll get relegated next year. We're only going to get a one-time relegation, not a two-time relegation. It's going to be unfortunate, but
Neil Mope
yeah,
is just like that itch that never goes away. Like he is just like ever presently annoying. And even if Everton get rid of him this summer, he's going to end up at like Fulham or something like that, and just be
Yeah.
terrorizing all of us. So
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I actually think I saw a video of him. He was injured and he was already back with Everton training
oh,
this
interesting.
past week, or maybe it was last week before the final game because he was injured enough that he wasn't going to play for Brentford in his final game on the loan.
He did play.
But
He did play.
so then why did I see him in blue kicking it around with I don't,
I
yeah,
don't know.
okay. So that makes it even more confusing.
Because Brentford played Newcastle. He came on for the last like 15, 20 minutes or something.
Oh, yeah,
It's
maybe he was just kicking
ma-
around with his parent club, I guess.
maybe it's possible that the Everton doctors wanted to evaluate him, because like sometimes there's that where like the parent club wants to evaluate the player, and maybe he was
Sure.
just like Everton looked at him and they're like, oh yeah, this is what Brentford said it is, he's fine. And then maybe they're just like, hey, can he do his training up here with Everton? And Sean Dyche was like, sure, or something. Or maybe the picture you saw is out of context. That's also
Yeah,
possible. The internet,
could be an old could be internet could have got me. Old
yeah.
video. Very
Um,
possible.
I think we should spare a few words for the managers that are leaving. Obviously, the
Yeah,
known one is
we got a
Jurgen Klopp.
list, right?
Yeah, so Jurgen Klopp
Klopp's not here.
is the main one. Any parting thoughts about his tenure at Liverpool, boys?
One of the best. Glad he's gone.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I share that sentiment.
Honestly.
I'm glad he's gone.
But one of the best. One of the most
I
dislikable ones at times. But
I
I would
think
take him at a Newcastle in a heartbeat.
yeah, I gave him a stick for complaining a lot, which he did. He did his fair share of complaining. Um, but truly, when Liverpool were at their peak with Firmino and Salah and Van Dijk and their entire group, that was just it was fearful watching.
Heavy
You know,
metal football, I think, is what it was
you're
described as.
you're
Yeah.
watching your team play this Liverpool team, and you're like, oh gosh, they could score any second. Like any slight bobble of the ball, any slight turnover, and they're going the other way in a heartbeat, and there's nothing you could do to stop it. And it was just anxious football. You were never settled while watching your team play Liverpool
I mean,
under Klopp.
I just knew Arsenal were always going to lose. Like
Yeah.
I mean, especially those Arsenal teams of like 3 or 4 years ago. Like I always knew that we were, if we played Liverpool, and especially if we were at Anfield, we were just going to get embarrassed, because that it happened time after time. Um, what are my thoughts on Klopp? I think that Klopp had the unfortunate task of going up against Manchester City, and specifically the charged 115 times Manchester City. So like for all of the years that the Premier League is charging, like the seasons that the Premier League are bringing those
He
charges
arrived.
against,
Was
we're
it
like
1 year before or 1 year after Pep?
I don't remember.
2016, I think he came.
I think he
So
came
it
before
was
Pep, wasn't he?
the entire overlap, essentially.
Yeah. But not all the city charges relate to only the Pep era. But what I guess my point is just that, like we would I think remember like a lot of non-Liverpool fans want to bring up the fact that he only won one Premier League with Liverpool, and so like he obviously wasn't a legend, but it's like there's not enough nuance there to understand like the state of the Premier League for the last 7 years. Is that we've had this juggernaut, who may or may not have been cheating.
You put if you take Guardiola out, I do think Liverpool would have won the league 4 times, maybe 3-4 times.
They scored like 90, how many points? 98 points and didn't win the league. 99 points, whatever it was.
98, yeah.
My team just lost the league on 89 points, and I'm annoyed. Like I would have lost my mind if my team lost the league on 98 points. That's insane.
I would liken the Klopp Liverpool team to the Golden State Warriors about 5 or 6 years ago, that were when the Splash Brothers were really playing, where unreasonable leads were still not safe. A 2-goal lead against Klopp was not a safe lead.
Yeah.
It was just not. And thing with Golden State, a 20-point lead in the basketball in fourth quarter was not safe against that team. And that's how it made you feel. If you're up 3-1 against Liverpool under Klopp in 2018, it's not safe. You need to keep playing.
That's right. Yeah.
And then the other big ones that have come to light is De Zerbi is leaving Brighton, and the news just came out today, as we're recording this. Chelsea are parting ways with Mauricio Pochettino. I think we start with Brighton because that one's maybe more expected, less, I don't know, but it was the one that was announced first. I was of the opinion that something could have been going on there. And obviously it turns out that this is the case. It seemed like for the last couple months that the way that De Zerbi was talking, it seemed like he was kind of 1 foot out the door for the last 2 or 3 months. And then the results over the last 4 weeks have been
terrible,
pretty dreadful. Yeah. So I'm not necessarily shocked by this. Sean, you were sticking up for him last week when I said that this was a possibility, and or at least maybe Brad was more, so I don't know. But
I just don't, unless there are shenanigans, I don't feel that at Brighton Hove Albion, an 11th place finish is a fireable offense. I just don't, you know what I mean? Like expectations wise, did they expect to be in Europe again? I don't think so. Maybe they did, but unless there are shenanigans, I don't see why for cause he was let go.
But I don't think he was let go for cause. That's not my read of the situation.
I think there are shenanigans. I think there are other.
But also, I think that De Zerbi just got tired of that situation. Like he's been there for 2.5 years or so now, something like that. And his players keep getting recruited. Like the club can't hold on to players. And that's the nature of Brighton, right? Like that's the culture that they have cultivated there, is that they will develop players and sell them on. And I think that maybe De Zerbi is not the right manager or not the right coach for a situation like that. So
yeah,
you know who is Pochettino?
Yeah, the big one's Pochettino. I don't know if any of us expected that this afternoon when we heard that news.
It was an absolute factory at Southampton when he was there. When they were pumping out top 6 talent left and right.
What was he like at Tottenham?
We held on to all of our players. He pumped out top 6 talent, and we went to the Champions League final. So, I mean, I guess to Brighton's point, or to De Zerbi's point, if you were to keep those players like Tottenham did, this is the heights you can go to.
what's your read of the situation, Joel? With Chelsea, like how do you see this?
I don't know. It's a weird one, right? I think that this is either something that was decided weeks ago, like at the end of the season, you're going like we can agree, like the
Yeah,
board and Poch agreed weeks ago, maybe months ago, who knows? And it just seems weird now because of how strongly Chelsea finished. Um, because I think that next season Chelsea can ship off some of their like
Deadwood.
deadwood players, yeah. Then I think Chelsea could be like good next year. But so it was either decided weeks, months ago, or I don't know, something happened at the end of the season. Poch wanted more say over transfers. I think Brad alluded to that in our texts, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm kind of glad from a like a rival fan perspective, seeing a good manager leave because he's a good manager. I just don't think I think Chelsea at the core right now, a bit like Man United, like from the top down, it's just they just need a reset. I don't know that Todd Bowley knows what he's doing particularly. So
Sean,
I don't know.
this is Poch is your guy.
I well, I wouldn't say he's my guy, but uh, I I think I just really echo Joel's sentiment of he is a good manager. I really found the PSG move really a silly one for him in particular because you went from developing and working with young players exclusively to managing egos, and it didn't work. You win a couple trophies when you're at PSG. You win a couple of French Cups or whatever, a couple of Ligue 1 or whatever.
Yeah.
Like he got a couple trophies while he was there, but the goal there is to win the Champions League. And if you're managing egos the entire time, it's really hard. And also, well, let's face it, winning the Champions League is really hard. Um, so expectations were unreal there. Then he comes to Chelsea, and he seems to be settling in. I told Brad at the beginning of the season, give him a year. He's got to work with these. You've got a completely other than Thiago Silva, you have a kids that barely shave club. And this, like, he works really well with young kids and developing talent. And like that 20 to 23-year-old player, he is really good with. And getting their mindset right. Like think Dele Ali and then how he fell off after Poch left. Um, and so it's just disappointing from a perspective of looking at Pochettino and what he was about to achieve. But as Joel said, I echo that 110%. I'm glad he's gone because what he was about to achieve was Debo Tottenham out of Europa. So
Yeah, I look at the manager landscape, and I will I will readily admit that I don't understand or necessarily know who the top managers are that are managing in Italy or Spain or Germany, like beyond like the big name ones, right? But I look at this and I'm like, I don't know if there's anyone really available that wants to come to Chelsea. I think Chelsea with this firing have really hurt themselves long term. Because if we remember under the Abramovich era, um, Chelsea were known for being ruthless with managers. If you weren't performing, you were out. And they always backed it up by the next manager being
Mhm.
hired, winning stuff, right? And so we've now seen for the last 2 years, they sacked Tuchel 3 weeks into a new season after he got all the preseason, which is incredible to me. And then they sack Potter 6 months later after signing him to a 5-year contract because and it was explained to us, the non-Chelsea fans and the Chelsea fans alike, that when they signed Potter, it was they gave him this long contract as a show of support, and it wasn't going to be like Abramovich. He was their long-term guy. They had a plan, and they were going to let Potter's plan and vision come to fruition. And they sack him 6-7 months later, whatever it is. Um, and then they bring Poch in. But then, interestingly, they only signed him on a 2-year deal. So it always this inflection point at the end of this season was always coming with Pochettino, was that they didn't commit to him long term up front because obviously they were reticent to do that again. But then, which the way that Pochettino has been speaking for the last month or so, it hasn't instilled any confidence. There's always been that ever present threat of, well, and at least in the media, and maybe I use the term media loosely because of our consumption of it, like in the Twitter sphere. So like, who knows if Twitter's not real life, but there was always this specter of if Chelsea don't win their next game, Pochettino's going to be sacked. It seemed like
Yeah,
that cropped up every 3 or 4 weeks. And Chelsea as a football club did nothing to dispel that thought. They did nothing to publicly support Pochettino. And so it
yeah, I think
always
yeah.
go ahead.
Sorry, I just think the surprise with it has come how fast it happened after the end of the season. If it was after the Euros, I would have maybe I could have seen that coming, Poch leaving, but like right after the end of the season, after a really good finish, like
It
I
almost
don't
seems
know,
like it
I don't
almost
know.
seems like they had to have had like an end of season meeting. Like he was speaking with people and talking, and the visions just weren't aligned. And so I'm sure he was
Yeah,
just like, I can get out of my contract now. I don't want to deal with this for another year. Um,
maybe yeah. Or again, my guess would be it was decided weeks ago,
yeah,
probably.
I don't
Maybe
know.
yeah. I don't
Um,
know.
I'd love to hear what you guys think about Pochettino being sacked because that was kind of the new one. Um,
All
fun
right.
rumor, fun quick rumor before we get out of here. Apparently, Bayern Munich is looking at Vincent Company as a potential
I
replacement.
saw that. I saw
Um,
that.
they're on manager number 12 after being turned down by a handful. I don't 12 is an exaggeration, but like their Rolodex is running out of managers at this point. I wouldn't be surprised if Max Allegri ends up at Bayern Munich at this point. Um,
So let's go in reverse order. Joel, top down view. How did you view the Newcastle season?
Ooh, what a topsy turvy season it's been. You got the highs of beating PSG 4-1 in the Champions League, and the lows of a never ending injury list, and just being mid table at times. The lows of being drawn against City, Man U, Chelsea in the cup competitions, like getting past some of them, but it just felt like at times in the season it was just we can't get past through this wall at times. But overall, now it's done. 7th place. Next season is looking great. If we can keep Bruno and we can keep Isak, especially, I'm going to feel really good going into next season with Tonali coming back as well. If Man United lose the FA Cup final, we are Conference League. I'll look at this season and be pleased, considering all things considered.
Yeah.
I think having some Champions League nights was really cool. I think we were, I don't want to say cheated out of it. I think some decisions went against us massively.
I'll say it.
Uh,
You guys were cheated. Like
yeah,
you guys were cheated 100%.
who, who knows what would have happened if we had beaten PSG away, which we should have. Um, yeah, that made all the difference with
Hmm.
that. If we could have qualified to the next round, who knows what could have happened to our season. But either way, pleased. Yeah, especially if United lose the FA Cup final to get European football, that'd be cool. Even though it's Conference League, it's something.
Yeah.
2 years in a row. Yeah.
What
Yeah,
about you,
that's
Sean?
it.
What about Tottenham?
I think, well, first of all, it's a progression, right? We were we were eighth last year. I think eighth the year prior, I believe. Um,
2 years ago, I think Arsenal were eighth, wasn't they? Weren't we?
okay. Uh,
I don't remember.
yeah, maybe that was Conference League with Jose, and they, had to forfeit the one game for a loss, so we didn't make it out of groups. Anyways, um, yeah, it's a progression. I mean, it seems like things are heading in the right way. It seems like we got all the players seem to be on board. They seem to be what it's not all about the meme about vibes versus tacticians like Pep Guardiola versus Real Madrid, where it's just vibes versus tactics. Um, but the players all seem to get along, and they are really happy for each other on the field when someone scores, uh, and they're rooting each other on and cheering each other on and getting each other's faces when they don't do things right. And I think that's a sign of a healthy team and a healthy locker room. And I think that means things are heading in the right way. And to get back into Europa is big. Obviously, that's the pay boost. I think we've got some. I don't want to call it deadwood because Royal tried his best, but like Royal's got to go. And if
But
they're estimating 30 million out of him. If we can get 30 million out of Emerson Royal, I'll take it all day.
yeah,
But
you'll
what's
you'll
hilarious to
drive the
me,
car.
I guess I'll drive the car for $30 million. It is what's hilarious to me is that Bayern is also in the running for Emerson Royal, which would just tickle me. So if they
That's
took Dyer and Royal off our hands,
100% an
Sure.
agent rumor, right? It's got to be.
Sean, is there an
yeah,
element of, while you're pleased with progression, is there an element of slight cause for concern with Andrew's comments towards the end of the season, when he was talking about seeing cracks over the last 48 hours, especially
no,
around the City game?
no, because I think what he was referring to was the staff, and not his coaching staff. I think he was talking about um, office members or chef or physios or what all things. I'm assuming is well with. I'm assuming if Ange wants the chef gone, then the chef's gone. I don't think he's the direct report to that guy, but if he wants the chef fired, he gets a new chef. I'm sure. But whoever was cracking jokes that pissed Ange off, I'm sure is going to be looking for another club to work for here soon. But you clear out all that. I think he's probably right. There's probably an underlying mentality within the club in the parts that don't pertain to the on the pitch stuff. That those types of things are okay, and in a serious club where we take football seriously, they're not okay to think, oh yeah, let's just lose the City to screw Arsenal. No, you guys can attest. There was not an ounce of me that wanted to lose the City. We got Champions League was in the windscreen. Like there's a chance we can make Champions League. There's no reason to throw this game to Chelsea. I mean to Man City. Absolutely no reason.
Yeah, if you guys had beaten
Uh,
City, you would have finished in the Champions League.
if we beat City, we would have been in the Champions League.
So do you think,
So
what about that? So that text I sent, kind of as a joke, in 10 years' time, no one's going to care that Spurs got Europa League versus Champions League, but everyone would remember that Spurs beat City to plant Arsenal as champions.
you make
Wait,
a fair point, but it doesn't. They don't matter to me in terms of my team's success. I'm I'm not altering my course, my path as a fan of what I want to happen based on what a rival's doing.
All
Other
right.
than the games we play each other, I if we can make Champions League, that means our team is progressing forward. That means we have a better chance next year to challenge them for the title, and that's what they'll remember in 10 years. Is that next year we're going to win the title?
oh, is that early prediction? Bold.
Yeah.
The season doesn't end in October, Sean. You got a few more months.
If it did, boy, if we did, we got that title locked up.
How do I see Arsenal's season? Um, I
Probably
think
tough.
I
Probably tough to answer that now, right? You probably need a little time.
yeah, I think I would probably be better suited to answer this question in like 3 or 4 weeks, but obviously I'm disappointed. As I was telling you guys, I had convinced myself that Arsenal were going to win the league. Um, I knew it was foolhardy. I knew it was foolhardy. But like over the course of the week since like Wednesday on, like there was just this feeling that like you know what, it's gonna happen. Um, and obviously it actually helped me tremendously that Phil Foden scored in 90 seconds into the City game.
Mhm.
Because
Yeah.
it erased that thought from me. I didn't allow myself to get built up that it was happening. Um, though the West Ham goal right before halftime definitely jazzed me up. I don't like. I, I'm so very pleased that we took 4 points off City this year. I'm very pleased we took 4 points off Liverpool this year. Um, but then I think about taking no points off Villa or 1 point off Fulham, and I'm just like, man, like what it could have been, what it could have been. Uh, the most games an Arsenal team has ever won in the Premier League, so obviously that's exciting. We scored a tremendous number of goals. Our defense was stellar this year. Like so good. It's just
I think you to summarize it as an Arsenal fan, you're probably pleased with the performances, pleased with the numbers, but disappointed that the numbers didn't result in any silverware.
yeah.
And
Yeah,
I think that's
absolutely.
exactly how Liverpool have felt the last few years too. Like I think it's just that kryptonite of City. It's just they're just there.
It would have been so much more palatable if there was a deep FA Cup run.
Yeah.
Um, like this whole getting bounced out of the FA Cup a round or two in, I'm not a fan of it because I really like the FA Cup, and the FA Cup is a nice it's a nice way to ease your pain if you're not if Arsenal were playing in the FA Cup final on Saturday or Sunday, whenever it is. I think it's Saturday probably. If we were in the
It
cup
is.
final on Saturday, and we had just lost the league by 2 points, obviously the disappointment of losing the cup final would have been very painful. But like just that hope of having silverware would have made this more palatable, if
Mhm.
into a sense. Yeah. So obviously very pleased with the Champions League run. Losing to Bayern Munich, like that's not even if it's this season's Bayern Munich, which wasn't
I-
very good. I mean, it's still Bayern Munich in the
It's
Champions
still
League.
yeah.
And so I can't quarterfinals. I haven't seen Arsenal in the quarterfinals in years, like 14 years or something like that. So like very pleased about that. And we were right there with City till the very end. So obviously, yeah, I think you summarized it very well, Jules. Like super pleased with the football we played. The numbers were great, but still very disappointed that it doesn't result in anything.
Yeah.
And part of I thought this last year. I was like, maybe last year was the year to beat City, and like, are Arsenal going to have another opportunity to do it? Um, and so like the prospect of needing to do it for 3 years, another year, is daunting. And so
Do you think if Arsenal had a number 9, they would have done it? Because I've seen loads of pundits say
I don't.
there's some times where there's just so many chances that Arsenal didn't put away, especially in the Everton game, that someone like a number 9, a striker, a
But we
poacher.
but we won the game. We scored 91 goals this year. So I'm not I'm not necessarily certain that it was lack of goal scoring or lack of like that specific threat. I mean,
But you could,
if we
I could also argue City scored 96. If you would have scored 96 goals, you might have had more points than them.
probably, I mean, yeah, if we had scored, yeah, I would probably agree with that
If you
sentiment.
had Erling Holland, or you
Yeah,
had
if we had 6 more
I don't know,
goals,
Solanke,
if we had 5 or
whoever.
Isak,
Isak, yeah.
if we had 5 or 6 more goals in the goal total, yeah, I bet we would have turned at least a number of those draws into wins, maybe a number of
Well,
those losses
that's the
into draws. And
difference.
yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. Um,
That's the difference between Jesus on what do you have, 4 or 5, and then Havertz on 9 or
Jesus
9 goals. I think he had.
was injured all year. Havertz took a
Sure.
while to come online, and you, to your point that you made early in the season, Havertz was doing a lot more than just goal scoring. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe an out and out number 9 would have changed the fates. But it was just really
Stan Kroenke has an opportunity to do the funniest thing of all time
oh yeah,
and bring Harry Kane to the Emirates,
bring Harry Kane
Back to us.
back to Arsenal.
Back to Arsenal.
back to Arsenal, and then lose. Lose.
Yeah, no, I don't want Harry Kane's cursed self anywhere near my club. Well, I think that might be a good place to end it. I would love to hear from you guys. I think we'd all love to hear from anyone who's listening to this. Like, tell us about your club. Tell us what your feelings are of the Premier League this year. Let us know how you're feeling. You can do that in the comments of this video on YouTube. If you're on the podcast site, you can click the link in the description to join our Discord server, and you can tell us about your thoughts there because I'm intrigued by that. Joel, as always, thank you so much for joining us this week. We really always do love having you.
Thank you, boys.
Hit us up on X. It's now officially X, no longer Twitter anymore. The guy down below, that's at Whiteheart_Sean. I am at James Tiffany. Joel is at Joel Findley 16. Brad is at KS Brad G. You can tweet him Mauricio Pochettino memes. Collectively, we are at redcard_radio, info.redcardradio@gmail.com if you want to reach that way. And we will be back next week. Only one episode this week. We'll be back next week. And I think we'll probably, I don't know, just figure out who won, win, lose, or draw, whose sheets of integrity were most integritous, or that's not a word, but yeah, we'll be back next week. And we hope you guys are too. Thanks so much.